Welcome back to the lab, my friends. Last week, we talked about biology. We talked about hormones and nervous systems and the uncomfortable but yet very real reality that you cannot build leadership if your system is depleted. You can't meditate your way out of your endocrine issues. You can't meditate or mindset your way through your chronic inflammation, and you can't perform authority or even have authority if your system is exhausted. Merging biology with mindset is someplace I think that a lot of people have a hard time accepting. And I believe I'm one of them, because I've been sitting in some things from that conversation that I had with Dr. Egbert. And as I've received feedback from the episode as well, it's got me thinking. And I realized something about myself. You know, for most of my life, I've said both to myself and to others that I wanted to be certain. You might even recall a story that I shared in episodes past where I don't want to do the work twice. I'm seeking to know exactly how it is, whether it's in spirit or in any of the domains. And I wanted that certainty that I was making the right move, that the decision that I was making would work. You know, even when it came to relationship stuff, I wanted to know that my decisions were the right decisions. Business ideas, before I invested a bunch of time or attention, I wanted to make sure that it would work. And in spirituality, it was, I think, where it was the most egregious, in that I wanted God to approve of things I hadn't done yet when I wasn't even willing to take a step in that direction. I sought momentum after clarity, and that's just not how it works. And so I realized, if I'm being honest with myself, I actually don't really and didn't want certainty. Certainty is the wrong word. What I wanted was control. And more specifically, I wanted control over the outcome. I wanted to engineer it so that what happened at the end was exactly what I was planning on happening, so that in the middle, I didn't have to feel that sense of doubt. Here's the thing I've come to understand, and this is what connects to last week's episode. When you have issues with your nervous system, you will crave predictability. Because when your biology is depleted, you try to mess with it by making sure that the external world can give you the guarantee that you need so that you can intellectually have that conversation with your body. And that's not the right way to do it. You're having a capacity issue, not a thought thread issue. You know, certainty is the one thing we were never promised here. To have authority, you have to not know what's going to happen. Authority is knowing that you can handle what happens. And that's a very different posture. That's a different place to come from. Because when your hormones are falling flat and your sleep sucks and cortisol's running the show and you have low energy, you don't trust yourself. You don't feel that connection in your body. And when you don't trust yourself, that's when you start looking for the guarantees. The byproduct of that is exactly what you've already experienced, is that you stall, you overthink, and then you call it things like discernment. You call it wisdom. I'm being careful. I'm acting wise. I'm waiting for the right timing. But underneath it all, what it really is you just have fear that you can't absorb the impact of what's coming. Because confidence, it's not prediction. As Dr. Jacob said, confidence is capacity. Your ability to lead is directly connected to your biochemistry, which is your body, which is your nervous system, which literally is your physical capacity to handle things. That's exactly what Dr. Jacob was pointing to. And whether you realize it or not, if you are strong physically, hormonally, neurologically, you can tolerate ambiguity and uncertainty. You can take risks and you can move quicker, you can recover, you can adjust. But when you're depleted, when you're not focused and you don't have that physical capacity, you need to know where you're going before you take that first step. And the part that sucks, and it's very, very clear, is that life doesn't work that way, dude. You do not get to control the market, other people, the timing of things. You don't get to control whether something succeeds or not, whether somebody stays in your life. You don't get to control whether or not you can avoid embarrassment or whether you avoid loss. You don't have jurisdiction there. Here's where you do have control. And there's beauty in the list I'm about to read to you. You have control over your standards, over your preparation, over your boundaries, over your discipline, your health. You have control over how you respond. You have control over your posture, the way you stand in front, both literally and metaphorically, of things that show up in your life. But here's the twist. The more that you try to control these outcomes, the less control you have over yourself. I'm going to say that again. The more you try to control outcomes, the less control you have over yourself. In those moments, you're abandoning the only thing that you actually have control over, which is you. And here's where that takes you. You stop taking action, you stop deciding with power and decisiveness, and you become very analytical. You ruminate, you overthink, and you convince yourself, again, that this is the wise move. You call it being careful. But all you're doing is you're playing in the middle. You're just outsourcing your responsibility to do what you can do and what you have control over, and instead trying to manufacture the little lanes to get the exact outcome that you want. And certainty will never show up when you do that. Because again, you've labeled it wrong. You're not seeking certainty. You just want a free pass from regret. You don't want to have to experience failure. And you want basically immunity from feeling the pain of doing it wrong. But your power, your authority, your leadership, it doesn't grow in that place of immunity. It grows through exposure, which means you have to have something on the hook for your capacity to increase and for your impact. If you need to know it's going to work before you take action, you'll never take action. You will never risk what you need to risk if you need to know that this won't fail. And if you need God or the universe to promise you a specific outcome, you're always just going to feel stuck in the middle. And here's the irony, is that when you look into your life and you see the people to which you want to be like, that seem certain and confident, they're actually not. Sure, they have a sense of those things, but their strength is in their willingness to take action without having the certainty, without knowing. That's the difference. And so right now, the real work is not trying to reverse engineer the universe and do everything right. Your opportunity and where you get to put the work and differences is, again, in the things that you can control. It's how you're sleeping. It's the way you train and fuel your body. It's the regulation that's required of your life. It's telling the truth to yourself about yourself, unwaveringly telling yourself the truth. And it's making a decision and taking action, especially before you feel like you're ready. Because you'll never feel fully ready if you're going for the life that you actually dream of. See, when you start to trust your capacity, you don't need certainty. You don't need guarantees. You don't need all that control over certainty with the outcome. because you are standing in front of it with authority without having certainty. And so if you're chasing that certainty and trying to micromanage and twist the levers to make sure you get it that way before you're taking action, it's not a philosophical problem at that point. It's a capacity issue. And that means that you don't have the capacity, which means you are not controlling the things that you can control, and you are not honoring the biochemistry of your body and how it connects to things like your emotions and your ability to decide and your thoughts. That's the flag I'm planting here. You keep calling it the desire for certainty when you're just a control freak because you don't want to fail. And you are preemptively paying the cost of your failure. Instead of taking action from a place of, I don't know how this is going to turn out, but I've got to do it. That level of anxiety and uncertainty, you're paying that price up front. When you do it this other way, where you try to manufacture specifics about the outcomes and you have to have all this control, you're paying it in installment. And the lived experience of paying it in installment is far worse than just doing it. So now you get to decide. So let me show you what this looked like in my own life, because this isn't just theoretical to me. In spite of being the host of this show, I'm on my own journey of getting to know me and becoming my very best and living the life that I wish to have. And so it requires both my internal reflection on this as well as stating my own experiences to you so that you can learn from it. You may have recalled when I told my story early on about my cancer diagnosis. When I found that lump, that first lump, I took action. I had it removed within 2 days of first finding it. Well, it may have been a little bit longer than that, but it was pretty immediate, all things considered. I called the doctor. There was an emergency appointment, surgery the very next day. I can recognize that required me to take decisive action, and there was some courage involved, and it was a big deal. But then something happened to me. There was a gap. Between the time that I had my surgery and when I actually met with the doctor for a specific diagnosis with my CAT scan and the other things that I had to have as a part of tests, it was 2 months. Huge gap between my surgery and my diagnosis. Between laying in a gurney, having my right testicle removed, being told it might be cancer to it is cancer, I waited 2 months to have the medical establishment telling me the truth on that. I stalled. I delayed that appointment. I gave myself all the excuses because of the holidays. It's not because I didn't care. I had a lot of fear about it, but I was frozen in that fear because as long as I didn't know, I didn't know. I didn't have to deal with it because it was put over on this other shelf. Even something as serious as cancer. Again, the specifics of that, if I don't have a CT scan, I don't have to deal with the results of that. If the doctor hadn't told me this is an official diagnosis, this is our ideas for treatment, I was in that gray zone in that middle. You know what the dumb part is? That part kind of felt like I had control. Because I was controlling the pushing off of actually having to deal with the truth. Which is fucking pathetic. That moment that I finally met with the doc and the illusion was gone. I couldn't, in my mind, twist it any other way. Before that, I told myself I needed time. There was excuses with the holidays. I wasn't ready. But what was really the issue is I wasn't ready for the outcome. I wasn't ready to have somebody that I trusted stand in front of me and go, yo, dude, you have lymphoma and testicular cancer. This is a big deal. You got to deal with this. I wasn't even 40 at that time. What happened is what happened. When the day that the doc confirmed it was the day that I lost control. Not having any idea what would happen next. But I also gained control because then I had something real that I had to choose as far as like my response and choices around it. I couldn't control if the cancer was going to spread or not. I couldn't control how my body would react. I couldn't control the statistics, but what I could control was my food, my discipline, how I allowed myself to feel or experience peace, the effort I put into that, the way that I connected to deity. I could choose my own treatment plan. That was where I had stewardship. That was where I had control. The outcome was never mine. Sure, I could choose certain things. And there is a aspect of that because of my experience and belief in neurolinguistic programming, I get that there is a temptation to give that more weight than it has. But here's the thing. I felt powerful in my delay of things. Even though it wasn't powerful at all, it was weakness. And I want you to consider where you're living in delay and saying that it's certainty and power. It's not. Your decision is where the power is. I had a very spiritual conversation with a close friend of mine not too long ago. I was in a position where I was having to make some really drastic choices for my life, my marriage, where I was at. And I lamented to him that it felt like God was silent on this matter, that when I would pray and try to talk to God, that I didn't really get answers, or I would get these weird answers that oftentimes contradicted themselves, which kind of made me pissed. And it didn't give me any sort of confidence or inspiration. And he reminded me that simple truth, that the power is in the decision. Like the clarity that I sought was in deciding that a decision is a step, and a step is momentum, and momentum is the prerequisite to clarity. So what I wanted to control and what I actually had control over were two different things. I had control over the decision. I just chose not to make it until a certain point. And everything else continued to cause anxiety and issues. Let me share something else. I've spent a lot of my life from a content creation, coaching standpoint, being more comfortable wearing the hat of a philosopher than that of a leader. Because I've always been good at analytics. I can take something, break it apart, and make something that's complex simple. And that allows me to explore nuance, that allows me to ask certain questions and to analyze. But it also keeps me insulated because I'm not having to decide anything. I'm philosophizing about it. And so when it comes to, who I am and what I'm doing, I'm off the hook in a way, where on the other side, leadership requires decision. Philosophers get to sit there and be thoughtful and think about things and analyze, where leaders got to do something. They get exposed if they're wrong, but they have to live with the reality of that and have to do it. It's far more comfortable and easy to talk about power than it is to actually exercise your own power. And there have been seasons in my life where I've built frameworks, I've refined my language, I've improved my ability to be articulate and to share things and do it from a concept that was easy to teach. It's given me a career, my willingness to dive into the specifics, both in a micro and a macro standpoint of communication, of relationships, of coaching. But at the same time, while that served me, it robbed me in part of my experience because I wasn't deciding anything. I wasn't leading. I wasn't telling people, do this. Because what if I was wrong? I didn't want the risk of being wrong and having my error affect you. And if I'm honest, when I've told myself that I needed clarity before making a decision, it was just that I didn't want to deal with the impact of being wrong. That was me absolutely being a control freak. I wasn't using wisdom or discernment. That was control. I wanted control. And leadership requires letting go of the illusion of control. You don't get to be certain before you make a move, especially as a leader. When you're leading yourself, when you're leading others, that's the order. You have to move first, and the certainty comes. Now, let me bring something else into this recently that's happening. I have been in a position, this podcast and my group coaching experience with the lab has put me in a position where I've had to make decisions about how to handle my branding, my positioning. My company, Media Automated, I've been doing that for 7-8 years now, hundreds of podcasts, over 12,000 last count episodes has been produced. And as I see AI and I see some of the other things that are shifting within the podcasting industry itself, I have, with fear, been tempted at times to sit back and to wait to potentially reinvent myself, wait to take action relative to the offers that I provide and the value that I can create for others. And it's caused a lot of hesitation. And in that hesitation, it's exposed anxiety and weakness. And thankfully, because I am actively engaged in this as a part of my life, like I'm starting to see it now. You may have noticed, as an example, I changed the logo a third time for this podcast, The Lab. And I did it very methodically this time. I incorporated the sphere that you see now and its gradient with the cut down the line that's about a 2/3 to a 1/4 line. There is symbolism behind that, to which now is scalable. I was not planting my flag as a leader, and it was affecting my willingness to tell the world, the lab is the answer you're seeking for the community that you don't have as an entrepreneur. The lab, both as a podcast and me as a coach, whether you pay me to work with you one-on-one or you're a part of my group, the lab is the doorway into what you need. I've been unwilling to stand on that because I'm philosophizing, hey, maybe it might not work. It might not be the right group thing for you. I don't know, coaching, how do you get what I'm saying? I didn't want to be judged. I didn't want to deal with it. I liked the insulation of the philosopher over the leader, but that is no longer where I'm at with this anymore. I kept telling myself I needed more clarity, but I just needed to increase my own capacity. And a part of the increasing of my capacity required me to plant my flag as a leader. It required me to take the domains of my life far more serious than I was. I saw the pattern and I'm changing it. But I want to make sure something's clear, because whether it's my experiences or your experience, there are two types of control that exist here. There's the illusion control, where you want to control outcomes and other people's reactions and how the market dictates things, which is huge right now with AI coming in and being such a disruptor. We want to control the timing of things, or whether something succeeds or not, whether in your relationship somebody stays or goes. But what we actually have stewardship over is none of those things. We have stewardship over the choices we make relative to our help, our discipline, how quickly we act when we make decisions, how much effort we put forward, what our standards and boundaries are. We have stewardship and control over our level of honesty. And if you are exhausting yourself trying to control all of those things related to the illusion and not the things to which you actually have stewardship, you are going to be wrecked with anxiety. But you won't call it anxiety. You'll say, I'm confused. And you will overthink and ruminate. And it's not going to help you. It's going to delay you further and put you deeper into that uncertainty, where you will have your own version of the philosopher versus the leadership moment, similar to what I had. And that's why when we circle back to last week, your biology, if it's flat and your nervous system is dysregulated and your energy is low, those feelings of uncertainty, they will feel deeper than just anxiety. They will feel dangerous. And when you're strong, you don't look at danger that way. Uncertainty isn't danger. You look at it as that's a challenge. You get excited about it because you know that there is an investment in it. You are not sacrificing or losing something by going into that realm. You are getting more back. It's just the timing and effort required up front causes anxiety when you're depleted in your body. Because when you're depleted, everything feels like a threat. And that's not philosophy, that's physiology. You don't trust your abilities to recover physically because of the effort that it would take. Think about that. If you understood how much, for example, physical exertion it was going to take for you to build out a portion of your business, and you stopped doing it because it was going to make you tired and you didn't want to have to put forth the effort, that is a direct example of your biology, your body being the obstacle because your system is depleted. And as the reminder, you have control over fixing those things. So I want you to sit with something. And I want you to ask yourself, what are you delaying? I've asked this question a ton, but there's a reason. Because even when we address the one thing we might feel top of list we are delaying, there are far more things still there. So I ask you, what are you delaying? What decision haven't you made? What call haven't you made? What haven't you done that you need to do? What conversation haven't you had? What part of your business haven't you launched? What offer haven't you given to the market? What are you unwilling to admit out loud? Because you're not confused. You just want guarantees for things that can't ever give you a guarantee. Guarantees are not a part of your stewardship. You building your own strength is the thing you can control. Authority is posture under uncertainty. Confidence is not prediction. Confidence is connected to your capacity. And again, you think you want certainty. You don't. You want control. And the only control you've actually ever had is over yourself. Got to strengthen that part. Take action anyway. Move. Decide. Be the leader of your own life. Put down your Socrates hat. Quit acting like you're this magnificent philosopher that just understands everything from every angle possible and actually choose something. Even if it scares you, even if you could fail, because the whole point is that you probably won't. Anyway, my friends, I appreciate the feedback you gave me for Dr. Jacobs' episode. We will be having more episodes like that, other interviews with professionals and people that I'm close to. I would like to invite you, if you would like to check out The Lab, my group coaching experience. The link is in the show notes. It's just bryceprescott.com/thelabgroup. Spend 90 seconds, go read what's there and see if it pokes at your heart. We're all in this together. And my challenges are very similar to your challenges. And even as I lead as the host of this podcast and to encourage people to take swift action and to design their life and to own the things to which they can own and then to have the faith required needed for the things that they can't, we're all in this together. Before I go, I have one other ask. If you've enjoyed this podcast, it's been a free offering I've given to the market. I do this as a labor of love. And I would ask you that whether you're listening to it on Apple or Spotify, that you go give me a 5-star rating and review. Please share this podcast, share these episodes. Spotify has a feature where you can share an episode directly to your stories. Please help me get the word out about the lab. And my friends, my name is Bryce Prescott. I am your host. And like I always say, until next time, take it a day at a time. I'll see you.